Hello, this is the Provocative Prawn, and this is the Ducky One Three SF. This is a small form factor gaming keyboard with a UK layout, as you can see here, but it is available in other variants. And this is a really interesting, reasonably affordable gaming keyboard with some really nice highlights that include, as you can see, very awesome aesthetic appeal, some nice RGB lighting. It has swappable PBT double shot keycaps with some extra ones included in the box that I'll show you in a minute. And some other real nice treats that include, in this version, Cherry MX silent switches, and that was one of the highlights for me. But it also has some other hidden treats that include dampening foam buried within its body, a dual layer PCB, and more. And it's also hot swappable, so you can swap out the switches as well as the keycaps and make it really delightful in a number of different ways. Now, this is obviously a compact keyboard, and yet it still has that sort of 65% TKL sort of mix to it, because you can see that you have the directional arrows on there. But there are a number of other things that are buried in the function layer as well. More on that later on, because that makes it also quite interesting with recordable macros and also custom settings for the RGB lighting and more besides. Now, it does have PBT double shot keycaps, as I said, and you'll see that there are some extra ones included in the box. Obviously that nice sort of blue and yellow hue with the otherwise grey ones in the middle, and some nice etching on the lettering as well. This looks great from multiple angles, but does give you the option to customize what keycaps you're using with it. Obviously it's a standard classic Cherry MX switch design, which means that you could swap it out with theoretically any keycaps, and I will demo that with a special one in a minute. But what I wanted to show is that you have the option to just change out the standard setup as it comes and just change the aesthetic ever so slightly. And it's nice to have those additional ones included. Removable USB-C cable. Obviously this is a wired keyboard, but it does have a detachable USB-C, and that plugs in the top left, and it's gold plated, nice looking, and speaks to the quality of the thing overall. So I'm really surprised by a number of things with this keyboard. It comes in at about £149 sterling, so it's not super cheap. It's also not mega expensive compared to some of the other ones I tried out. And as soon as I started actually using it, pulling it apart, tugging at various things, testing things out, I found that it was really nice for a number of reasons. Now, when you pop that keycap off, you'll see underneath those Cherry MX silent red switches. Now, I noticed immediately that they're slightly of off red colour, actually look a little bit pink under the video lighting, and what I found was that was interesting because these switches are very quiet, and you'd get that impression from the silent label, but they're very, very nice to use and deliver a really good, comfortable click sound, and that's also supported by the dampening foam. I'll do a sound test later on this to show you a comparison between this and Cherry MX red switches that I got out of a Corsair K70 Pro Mini Wireless, because I wanted to demonstrate the difference. The switches are obviously standard in that they're Cherry MX switches, so pretty standard gaming keyboard switches, but they deliver really good sound, really good comfort, and interesting appeal. But obviously it's hot swappable, so you can just tug those switches out. You don't need to desolder, so if you don't like them for whatever reason, you can swap them out, and it accepts 5-pin as well, more than just 3. So here you can see some Novel Keys cream switches, for example. These are actually lubed, so I've lubed these switches, and they are usually very quiet. But by comparison, I actually found that the Cherry switches inside are quieter. So you can see the escape key is the Novel Keys cream, and then 1 and 2 is the Cherry MX silent reds. So very surprised by the difference there. And that obviously goes through to the whole sound test, which I'll leave later on. You also have a number of different Ducky themed keycaps that you can swap out, and obviously you've got the key puller and the key switch puller as well, so you've got a variety of different tools to go to town on this and upgrade and customize it if you want to. But I don't think that you need to necessarily, because straight out of the box it's got a number of really nice highlights to it, and it's really good looking and it's really comfortable to use. You've obviously seen at the beginning that it has adjustable feet on the underside, so you can get it into a nice position. Now, it does have quite a fat body, so it does sit off the desk at a reasonable height. There is no included wrist rest, which is a shame, but I've just found it really nice to use and really comfortable. Also, you'll see those double shot keycaps. They should stand up to the test of time because they are comfortable. They've got a nice design to them, and the lettering is really nicely done. Now, I said already that you can swap out your own custom keycaps. So here's one that I purchased from the Dwarf Factory, which is just a tiny little bear with a guitar sitting inside a key. And I'm going to use him in the escape key just to demonstrate that you can do that. I recommend checking out Dwarf Factory, by the way. It does a lot of cool artisan keycaps if you're interested in that sort of thing. And you can just slip any keycaps you want into there as long as they're standard setup. They should work nicely. And then you've got an improved design potentially. Now, what I also wanted to demonstrate here is a difference between the Cherry MX red switches and those silents. So just removing the keycaps off here on the right hand side, so you can change out the directional arrows. Now, the thing that I like about this keyboard is it has that small form factor to it, but you've still got the directional arrows in the bottom right there. Really nice touch to it. One thing that I am sad that is missing is a volume wheel, but you do have the ability to control media volume from other keys, and I'll show you that later on. So you can pull out the switches and just replace them. I happen to have a Corsair keyboard laying around, which is also hot swappable, which has some Cherry MX red switches in it, so the traditional ones that you'd use for gaming. And here you can see those two switches side by side. You'll see that the silents are ever so slightly pink by comparison, so the reds are on the right and the silents on the left there. And what I'm basically doing is swapping those out and showing you the sound difference. So I'm going to pop that Cherry MX red switch into the right hand side of the keyboard now, so then the right directional arrow, and then in the center you'll see the silence. And I think it's important to note this because obviously the other difference is the sound dampening foam on the inside of this makes it a lot quieter as well and a lot more pleasant on the ears. And then another quick demo, just to show you the difference between the K70 Pro Mini from Corsair and the Ducky One Three as well. And then you've seen just how delightful that keyboard is by comparison to another pretty decent keyboard. The K70 Pro Mini Wireless was a nice one, to be fair. Now, from multiple angles, you can see there's some nice RGB lighting going on the Ducky One Three as well. It has a nice aesthetic from various different positions here. It's got this back plate to it, which allows for a nice bit of glow through from these angles here. But one thing that's interesting is it's not software controllable. There's no software included with this keyboard, so it's all hardware level. But what you will notice from these angles is that you can see that there's a second layer of actions buried in the various different keys. You'll notice that the WASD keys, for example, have media playback buttons, so A, S, and D adjust volume, and then the other ones also adjust playback and QWERTY sort of line up there. And then you also have controls over the various different lighting effects too. So at a lower level, you can see here that Z, X, C, and V adjust various things. N opens the calculator on your PC, and then you can see it's like print screen and just page up, page down, pause, and certain other things. So some of the controls are done by pressing function and then those keys, and other ones are done by pressing function and alt together and then pressing those keys. You'll see that there's macro recordings on the left hand side and a tab, caps lock and others, and then you have all these other ones as well. So you can also still access the function row, but sometimes you have to press two keys at the same time, so function and alt, for example, to change between the lighting effects. Now, I'd highly recommend checking out the official manual on this if you're stuck, because it's not immediately obvious which is which from the lettering on the keyboard. Some of them require one press, some require two presses. And so it's a bit of a faff, I think, here. But it is nice that it's plug and play, and then you have access to be able to do all these things directly from the keyboard itself without too much of a fuss. So in conclusion, this is a great looking, great sounding keyboard with a number of really nice highlights to it. I really wish it had a volume wheel, but otherwise, fantastic bit of kit, and I can't really find too many faults with it. Really nice looking and great fun to use. So here's now a quick sound test against that K70 again, and then with the keyboard on its own. Stick around to the end to help support the video. Thanks for watching. You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos, you might well find them interesting or useful, and most importantly, have a great life.